welcome back to Reading with Mo. Today we're going to be talking about the books that I was able to get to in the month of April. Altogether there are 13 that I want to share with you guys. Of the 13, there's 2 of them that I started and that I have DNF'd. I'm not going to be finishing, so I'll go ahead and let you know about that. There is a whole book series that I completed last month, part of it as a reread. So yes, let's go ahead and get straight into them. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you guys about them in the order that I read them for the month of April. I think that'll just be the easiest for me to keep track of and to not get lost and like forget things. I didn't really read a lot of books that I had physical copies of. This stack here is the physical books that I have, and the rest of them are all books that I checked out through my Libby app. So that means that I got to a lot of new releases last month. So first up, we have The Dance Tree by Karen Millwood Hargrave. I ended up giving this book a 4-star rating. This is a historical fiction novel set in Strasbourg in around 1518. And it's following the story based on these true events of this dancing plague that took place where I forget how long it was, but I think it was for days. Like basically these women were dancing without like taking breaks or anything, and it was just this weird thing that happened. We're following a few different women characters. We're following Lisbeth, who kind of lives outside the city, and she is pregnant. Her sister-in-law is returning after being like in exile, I believe it was, for like 7 years. She doesn't know why or what she did to have this punishment, but yeah, I think her name is like Nettie. She's coming back, and then we're also following Nettie. And then there was another woman I think that we were following as well that was like inside the city, if I remember correctly. All in all, I really did enjoy the writing of the story. I do have another book on my shelf by this author called The Mercies, so I want to pick that up soon and see how I feel about that one. Next up, we have a book I didn't finish, and that was called Stealing by Margaret Verbal. This was a somewhat new release. I ended up giving this book a rating on Goodreads of just 2 stars only. I just know I don't like books that are written like for adults but from the perspective of a child. I don't know, just something about that I just don't enjoy. Just if you liked Room by Emma Donoghue, like if you enjoy that perspective, I think you'll enjoy this book. But for me, just right away, I didn't like that. So I think I only got about like a quarter of the way into this book before putting it down. It wasn't even that long of an audiobook, but I just was like, I know I'm not enjoying this. I want to move on to something else. The basic premise of the story is we're following a Cherokee child who is removed from their family and sent to this Christian boarding school in the 50s. I can't really tell you much more about it than that because I did not really finish it. And I know there's a lot of people though who do really like this book and who have given it high ratings. Like I feel like it has pretty good rating on Goodreads right now, so I know I'm in the minority on this, but I just really, for some reason, just cannot get on with books, like I said, that are written for adults, but from a child's perspective. The next 3 books I'm going to go ahead and just talk about in tandem. They're all by the same author and part of the same trilogy by Jane Allen. That is the Black Girls Must Die Exhausted series. First off, we need just a moment of how beautiful these covers are. So these are all 3. They are very beautiful. I know I received, I think, at least 1 or 2 of these from Harper Perennial, who publishes these as review copies, and I finally finished this trilogy this month. The 3rd book just came out and completed the series. I actually ended up listening to most of these on audiobook. They're pretty short and easy to listen to. I enjoyed the first 2 books the most, I would say, so I gave the first 2 books 4-star rating, and the last book I gave a 3-star rating. So before I go into my reasoning for the 3rd book, I'll just like give you a brief like synopsis. So we're following in the first book our main character. Her name is Tabitha. She is in her mid-30s and she has like a lot of things that she wants: to be married, have kids, all this stuff. She's dating someone, but she ends up getting this news from her doctor that her time to have kids may be limited, so it's kind of speeding up her feelings of her needing to feel like she has her life put together and all these things. So that's just kind of like the basic premise of where the first book starts. I won't give away any spoilers for the rest of the series. I reread last month the first 2 in anticipation of the 3rd one coming out because it had been a couple years since I read these ones, and I wanted to make sure that I got the full enjoyment out of the 3rd book. Honestly though, I didn't need to reread the first 2. The 3rd book is really good at recapping the things that happened in the first 2 books, so like you could almost practically even go into the 3rd book and not be like super confused on what's going on. And that was one thing I think that kind of pulled down my enjoyment for it, because it's already such a short book. The book itself is like barely 200 pages, and I felt like a third of that was, or at least a quarter of it, was just recapping things we already knew that had happened in the previous books. And so for that reason, that's why I kind of gave it a 3-star rating. I just didn't really feel like a lot of stuff was really happening in this book, like to make it worthy of like the final conclusion of everything that's happened and that we've kind of built up with through these 2 books. Overall though, like I did enjoy the series. I would recommend them to you guys. So like I said, this was the first 2 were rereads for me, and I hardly ever reread books. At least I haven't really been prioritizing it as much as I would like to. So that was really nice to reread these books and see that I still did enjoy them. Now that I finished the series, I feel like I'm good though. Like I don't feel like I need to reread them for a 3rd time. So because of that, I'm probably just gonna unhaul these books off of my shelves, even though like the covers are so beautiful, I want to keep them, but I know realistically I'm probably not going to read them again, or if I did, I could just get the audiobooks from my library. This series is actually being adapted, I heard, into a TV show, and I'm definitely interested in seeing like who they cast for the different characters in here and how they adapt it for TV. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be checking that out whenever that's released. Next up, we have an Isabel Allende book, and that is The Infinite Plan. Sorry if I sound a little stuffy or nasally. I have been having a lot of seasonal allergies lately. But this book I really enjoyed. I gave it a 4-star rating. This was Isabel Allende's first book that takes place in the United States, so it was a little bit different for me from what I was used to from the previous books I've read from her so far. And this one is also following the perspective of a man, which in the previous books she's written that I have read, they had all followed women main characters. So it was definitely interesting and different from what I had come to expect from her writing. In this book, we're following our main character, Gregory Reeves, and we really follow his whole life story from growing up in a Hispanic barrio in a Los Angeles like neighborhood, all the way to like his journey. He ends up going to war and the Vietnam War, and then eventually going on to become a lawyer in San Francisco. So we really just get a full perspective of his life. He really just felt like a real person that existed. We see so many different little things in history through his life, but told like, you know, through this perspective of someone living through it. All in all, I really enjoyed this book. I really love Isabel Allende's writing, and I think I went back and forth with this one between like the audiobook and the physical book. It was very easy to listen to. I read through this one pretty quickly. It was definitely easy to follow along with. I think this was also, they were saying, like her first story following American characters. Next, I listened to the audiobook for Sophie McIntosh's newest release, and that was called Cursed Bread. It was a really short audiobook, so very easy to get through, but unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy it that well. I ended up giving this book only a 2-star rating. This is my 3rd time reading a Sophie McIntosh book. I had read The Water Cure previously and Blue Ticket. The Water Cure I liked. I think the Blue Ticket I thought was okay, and I wanted to give another try to see like how I really felt, because I think I liked The Water Cure, but didn't think it was like the best book ever. So after reading this 3rd one and giving it only a 2-star rating, I feel like I might not pick up any more Sophie McIntosh books, or at least not anytime soon. It's not going to be a priority or new releases. It was really, what really intrigued me about this book is it's supposedly following like the true unsolved mystery that happens to this French village back in 1951 of this mass poisoning. It caused this like mysterious illnesses and hallucinations in the village, and a lot of historians believe that it was a result of poisoned bread, and others think that it was a result of like government testing on the population. We're following Elodie is the main character, and she is the baker's wife in the town. There's this new couple that moves into town, and Elodie kind of is like has a very plain, quiet, simple life, and she kind of yearns a little bit for more, and this couple moving into the town really makes her like kind of want to be in their like lives, because it's like more interesting than her. Overall though, I just never really got into the story. I never really felt hooked or really invested in any of the characters. I just felt like there wasn't really that much going on. There's the kind of weird parts where I didn't understand, and then I just kind of like was bored, so then I started not caring and not paying as much attention. So all in all, like this is not a book that I would generally recommend. Next up, we have Bridget Jones' Diary by Helen Fielding, which is the first book in the Bridget Jones' Diary series. These were published, let me look at what year these were published. I think these were published in like the 90s. So I read this one, and so I was reading parts of it. I couldn't remember if maybe I had read it before back when I was like a teenager, possibly. If so, I really didn't remember much of it. And so I gave this book a 3-star rating. I thought it was okay, but I feel like if I had read this at a younger age, like I would have enjoyed it more because of the form it's told in. It's in diary form, and we get a lot of like blurbs at the beginning of like different things she's keeping track of as far as like her diet and habits and stuff. And I know I was really into books told in like diary form when I was a teenager, so maybe if I had read this at a younger age I would have enjoyed it more. But I don't know, because technically it's kind of like marketed more towards like people in their 30s, I feel like, so maybe I would actually be closer to the intended age demographic now, that where the age that I am now. I enjoyed the book, but not enough to really feel like I wanted to continue on with the series. We are following Bridget Jones, who's in her 30s, and she's single, and people give her a lot of flack about that and about her weight and being overweight, and she's very self-conscious about her appearance. She keeps track of a lot of different things, like I said, like her smoking habits, her eating habits, her weight, things like that. She is kind of being put towards being with this one guy that her family is kind of trying to pressure her to be into. She's kind of in this very toxic, on and off, weird, not even really like a relationship thing with one of her coworkers, I believe, who was like her boss, and then it's just like a lot of stuff going on. So I ended up, like I said, gave this 3-star rating. I'm not going to continue on with the series, but I did watch the movie adaptation, which I thought I had seen before, but apparently not, because when I watched it, I didn't. Maybe I've seen like clips, but I never actually watched the whole thing through. I ended up actually watching all 3 of the movies: Bridget Jones' Diary, Bridget Jones, I think it was like Age of Reason, and Bridget Jones' Baby. I heard there's like a 4th one going to be coming out, maybe, so we'll see. I enjoyed the books, and I mean the movies, and I felt like I got what I needed out of the movies quicker than like it would have taken me to read the books. All in all, yeah, it was interesting. I don't know if I'd really highly recommend who I would recommend this to, but I'm glad I experienced it, because I feel like this is definitely like something that's almost as like a modern classic. It's very popular, and it's one of those books you kind of just see everywhere, and now I know what it's all about. Next up, we have another DNF, and that was Leech by Hiran Inez. I hope I said the name there right. I got about 1/3 of the way into this book before I decided it just wasn't for me. I wasn't really enjoying it, so I was just gonna cut my time with it short. This book is like a science fiction novel. I would guess would be kind of like the category you'd put it in, a little bit like gothic and like the tone. I can't give you like my own full synopsis on the book because like I said, I didn't finish it. I only got about 1/3 of the way through, but it takes place in an isolated chateau, and the Baron's doctor has died. The doctor's replacement has a mystery to solve, discovering how the Institute lost track of one of its many bodies. For hundreds of years, the Interprovincial Medical Institute has grown by taking root in young minds and shaping them into doctors, replacing every human practitioner of medicine. So I feel like that part really confused me. I didn't really understand how that was going to play out until I read or was listening to the audiobook and realizing like it's all like all their doctors are basically kind of part of this hive mind, I guess. I don't know. It was kind of confusing. I was a little bit confused and lost, and I kind of just like didn't really care. At some point to continue on and figure out what was going on, I was just confused. I didn't really care for this book. So like I said, I gave this book a 2-star rating, and I didn't finish it. Next up, we have A Spell of Good Things by Ayobami Adebayo, another recent release. I ended up giving this book kind of like a 3.5 rating. It was good. I definitely feel like I would try out another book from this author in the future. They have another book called Stay With Me that I'm interested in possibly reading eventually. In this book, it takes place during modern Nigeria, and we're following 2 different families. It is very contrasting in between the people who have money and who don't. We're following Inyola, who is this boy, although he's very tall, and so people like treat him like a man. And his father has lost his job, so their family is very much struggling. Inyola and his sister and mom are really trying to help make ends meet, but they are definitely living in poverty after having had a stable home life for a while. His father losing the job really just turns everything upside down for them. He's in school though, and Inyola is hoping for a better life for him and his family, and hoping to eventually have things be different. And we're also following the perspective of Wariola, who is a doctor, and she's in this relationship with this guy named Kunle, and they're about to probably get like engaged and stuff, and her family has money. They end up having their stories intertwined, but not super a lot more so until the end. You don't see how they interconnect. There is this politician who took a interest in Enola, and he gets involved in stuff with this politician that ends up combining both of their storylines. You can definitely see that the author has addressed a lot of social, economic issues and themes in this book, and I really overall, like I said, enjoyed it. I would recommend it if it sounds interesting to you, and I will be picking up Stay With Me by this author eventually. Then we have another new release, and that is The Secret Diaries of Charles Ignatius Sancho by Patterson Joseph, and I ended up giving this book a 3-star rating. I started off listening to this book as an audiobook, but I don't know, for some reason, maybe it's just because I speed up things too much, I found it a little bit harder to follow along with, so I had to get the ebook for it to help with that. We are following this fictionalized story of a true character, Charles Ignatius Sancho. The author has done some research. There's not a lot of stuff available about him, so he does take a lot of liberties in coming up with his story, but it's told as Charles writing letters to his son about his life and everything, and we're following not just the letters from him to his son, but letters from him to his wife when they were like in their dating phase, as she was like living on this plantation in the Caribbean. I forget specifically the island. This historical fiction novel, it takes place in like 18th century England, and Charles is black. He was a slave, or like, and he arrived there on a slave ship. Both his parents passed away, and it's not really until later in his life that he experiences being around other cultures, especially people more like himself. Overall, I enjoyed this book, but not as much as I really hoped to. I just never really felt super invested in the characters or really invested in the story, and I feel like that's what kept it from being a higher rating for me. But I would definitely still recommend it to you guys if it sounded interesting, and I really enjoyed the author's writing, so I feel like I would definitely be open to picking up another novel by Patterson Joseph in the future. And then we have Greek Lessons by Han Kang. This is a book in translation, translated by Deborah Smith and Emily Ye Wan. I ended up giving this book a 3-star rating. So this is my 3rd time reading a book by this author. There's actually a lot of authors in this video who this is my 3rd time or 3rd book of theirs that I've read. So I gave this one a 3-star rating. I read previously The Vegetarian, which I didn't really care for much, and I read Human Acts, which I loved. It was like a 5-star rating, so I just had no idea how I was going to end up enjoying this book or not. It's following the story of these 2 main characters. One of them is he's losing his sight, and she doesn't speak. She's lost her language, ability to speak. She's mute. All in all, like I said, I gave this book 3-star rating, but I find it not very memorable, and I really was hoping I was going to enjoy this book a lot more than I did. The book takes place in this like classroom in Seoul. We're following our teacher and the student. She is learning Greek, and the teacher, he's losing his sight, like I mentioned. For her, she in just the last few months has lost custody of her 9-year-old son, I believe it was, yes, and her mother. She lost her mother. For him, he is dealing with the pain of growing up between Korea and Germany, and being torn between 2 cultures and languages, and the fear of losing his independence as he is losing his eyesight. They both are coming into each other's lives during this very pivotal point in their lives as they're dealing with all of these hard issues. Like I said, I really just thought I was going to enjoy this a little bit more than I did, and like I said, maybe if I read it physically, I would have enjoyed it more, but so far this was just like okay. I think I still am open though to reading another book by Han Kang to see how I feel, because now I have read a book that I really liked and I really didn't, and that kind of fell in between, so I have to give this author another try. Then last but not least, we have The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. This book I read on a whim. It wasn't really on my radar or on my TBR. I wasn't planning on reading it last month, but I know that Kayla from Books and Lala had chosen it for the Literally Dead book club, and something about it kind of just grabbed my attention, and I decided to pick it up and listen into the audiobook myself. It had been a little while since I had listened to like a book in the mystery thriller category, so this sounded interesting and I decided to pick it up. It was another new release, and I ended up giving this book a 4-star rating. In this story, we're following, there's 5 women who all have been invited to this exclusive writing retreat by this world famous author, and it's in this isolated area, and they're all basically there to write the next best novel of their lives, pretty much. The book was a little bit over the top, I will say, but it was entertaining. It was easy to listen to. We're following our main character, Alex. She's the narrator of the story, and we know that she has this previous relationship that's gone sour between her and another of the author women that was invited on this trip. So that's like one of the points of tension in the beginning. She's not sure how that's going to play out with them having to be together for a week when they have all of this tension between the two of them. And we know something happened in the past, but we don't know exactly what happened to make their friendship turn so bad. This psychological thriller definitely gets crazy in the end, and I feel like it would be something interesting to watch as like an adaptation on TV or something. Altogether, I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was interesting. I know that a lot of people probably wouldn't be into this book. There were parts, I will say, like I gave it a 4-star rating. This wasn't a perfect mystery thriller to me. There was some stuff that I could have done with less of, but overall, like, it was entertaining, and that's basically what I was looking for when I picked up this book. So that is everything that I got around to reading in the month of April. Altogether, I'm pretty glad with how much I got through in the month, considering how busy I was with other things. Hopefully May I'll be able to get to just as many books. We'll see. Let me know what you guys read last month, if there's anything that stood out to you, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye!